Mike Burlack here to entertain you. This is going to be, I'm doing film reflection videos on the entire Hellraiser series, and this is going to be part 2. I talked about my personal viewpoints on the first 2 movies. I didn't go into thorough depth of the first 2 movies as far as the plot and whatnot, because I didn't see any point, because only Hellraisers or fans, fellow Hellraiser fans like myself, are even going to be remotely interested in looking at these videos anyways. So, on to part 3. Well, unlike the first 2, which I saw in the theater as a child, our father took us to see it, I did not see this one in the theater. When it came out, the authorities had already took my sisters and I out of our dad's life. One of the comments my father would, and I'm only mentioning this because for long-time viewers of my channel, one of the comments my father would say in deluding himself is, "I was the best father in the world. We went out for ice cream all the time, and we saw all the movies you wanted to see." Yeah, we went out for ice cream, but we could never have chocolate. We had to only have vanilla, because according to my father, vanilla ice cream is healthy. Chocolate ice cream is fattening. I don't know. That's what happens when you have to live your life according to someone else's dictation. I know now, it was basically just his way of justifying his short, taking us just to whatever movie we wanted to see. It was his way of just justifying his shortcomings as a father. If it was only, and I think I've said this before on my channel, if it was only just the punching and kicking, maybe it would have been okay. But the day in and day out emotional and intellectual torture, I know I endured under this male feminist rule. I don't know what might have happened if the authorities did not intervene. Okay, back on topic. Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. So, I did not get to see this one at the theater. However, I did catch it on HBO in the years after. Saw it on cable TV in the 90s after I was already living with my mom. My impression of it was unique enough. I think, you be the judge, you the viewer. At this point, I was more acquainted with the first 2 movies thanks to free network TV stations at the time that were secondary to major networks. They would show the movies that were not as family friendly. Basically, under the rules, all they were obligated to edit, censor out were excessive gore and cursing, mainly. You could do that with those films, Hellraiser 1 and 2, and Hellraiser 2. You could do that with those films, more or less, without sacrificing the story, which the story was the important part to me personally. So, going back to Hellbound, the second one, we were, without going into too much detail, that film did successfully humanize the Pinhead character. The second one, I'm going back a little bit here. Yes, you heard me right. The guy with the nails in his head was humanized and then killed off. So, from my perspective, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, was in part dedicated to the resurrection of Pinhead as pure evil. And to make him a sympathetic character, they made him a Vietnam vet. Hey, it worked in Karate Kid 3. With go for guy. So anyways, or maybe Doug Bradley just was seeking job security. I don't know. But another important element to 3 was it offered a more in-depth explanation for the roles of the Cenobites, or demons to non-Hellraiser fans. They basically were humans who let themselves become victims to the sin of the world, lost souls. Um, so although this was kind of already established into because going back to 2, when the character Chatter is killed and reverts back to his human form, you see him as a young kid. So when I saw that, I thought, well, maybe he let the sins of his father get the best of him. That's what I thought as a kid in the theater watching the movie. But the role of the Cenobites was definitely more in-depthly explored in Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. Some of my favorite lines from Hellraiser 3 is the scene in the club where, basically the aftermath of a bloodbath. And the reporter, the woman, Joey, female named Joey. Okay. Anyways, she's going around and, looking at her, oh my God, and Pinhead shows up and says, "Oh, the agony of friends, the suffering of strangers." And then later on in that film, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, when they're in the church and the priest, the Pinhead character does something that probably would offend a lot of people. He basically does the whole break body of Christ thing, only using himself. So, that's definitely shock value on the makers of the film. Incidentally, 3 would be the last one that Clyde Barker would have any direct artistic involvement. But anyways, after all that, the priest yells at Pinhead, "You'll burn in hell for this!" And Pinhead, in all his pain and glory, says, "Burn? A very limited imagination." The only other line that stands out for me personally from Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth is from the character Joey when she says, "Bastard! You invaded my mind!" These days when I hear it, I think, yeah, that's how I feel about the Democratic Party these days. Call it a habit if you want, but I've always strived to find signs of story continuity in the series. For example, the pillars in Part 3. It makes me think of the pillars at the end of Part 2. The building at the end of Part 3 makes me think of the building in the middle part of the story of Part 4. Also, 3 was the first movie where the Pinhead character was actually referred to the Pinhead character. I think Clyde Barker would appreciate it if I mentioned that. In the first 2 Hellraiser movies, Pinhead actually did not have a name. So, that's a mini shout out to you, Clyde Barker. And that brings us to Bloodline, the 4th Hellraiser movie. This one gets a lot of smack talk. I think a lot of people just don't understand these movies. Maybe they take them too serious, or I don't know. Like I said in Part 1, my efforts are really just to talk about my impression of the series, of all the films in the series. I did get to see Bloodline in the theater. At this point in my life, I was already living with my mom. My mom was working, I was working, and we would every other Sunday we'd have an outing and we'd go see a movie. So that's what we did, and that's how I was able to see Bloodline at the theater. Okay, so Hellraiser Bloodline. A film that offers up such awesome closure to the world created by Clive Barker, in my opinion. but it would be the last one. Okay. I made a mistake earlier. Okay. Clive Barker had some involvement financially with Hellraiser Bloodline, but no direct artistic involvement. But anyways, in one film, you basically get an original story on where and how the box came into being. That French guy in 17th century, 1700s rather, that French guy Merchant, La Merchant, the toy maker. So you get that, a little bit of, history, fictional, but history story. You get a little bit of the middle, a little bit of, middle story involving the bloodline of the toy maker. And a beautifully crafted ending where darkness and pure evil meets its demise on that benevolently created space station in the future. To me, that was awesome. Now, because to me, all movies, past and future, now have closure. Thanks to Hellraiser Bloodline and Space Station in the future. Now, I know you could argue about the multiverse of storytelling, and I would acknowledge that that's a valid point. But for the purpose of my perspective and on the Hellraiser series, and the purpose of this YouTube video, to me, Bloodline gives the whole series, including the last movie, closure. So I'll end this part 2 of my film reflection of the Hellraiser series with my favorite lines from Hellraiser Bloodline, including the one that became so popular. This is why it's confusing why people talk smack about the movie. But the line that became so popular, they made a t-shirt out of it. Pain? How dare you use that word? And the t-shirt says, I am pain. That line is from Bloodline. Another interesting line from the Pinhead character in Bloodline is, "And what do you hope for, demon?" That's what the merchant descendant says to him, and he says, "Nothing. I am exquisitely empty." And when you're a kid, you hear that, you're like, yeah, me too, Mr. Pinhead. I want to be exquisitely empty too. But then you grow up and you sort of grow and your mind expands. And despite looking like he's been to hell and back, the character Pinhead, one line from Bloodline where you actually hear a hint of fear in the character of Pinhead when he's the project that the descendant of the merchant is working on, having to do with lights and perpetual light. And when he's in the basement of the building and he's looking at the designs on the wall, Pinhead, he says, and this is the only time in the whole series you really do detect a hint of fear in his voice. "This is not a room. This is a Holocaust." Yeah, your Holocaust, demon. That's what I said. To me, Bloodline represents so beautiful closure for the whole series.